I'm the co-founder of WEbuilding. It's a non-profit organization here in Berlin, which is based around a group of architects and with a goal to help the under-resourced communities around the world to fulfill their various community projects, ranging from schools to libraries and similar facilities. It is important to stress out, whatever we do, we actually do it after the direct approach by the local organization. So we are not choosing kind of which project are we doing. We first get contacted by various local NGOs that work with the local communities. They express their need for a certain public building or anything similar, and then we go into this conversation, speak with them, and then develop those projects further and see how to do it. It is. I was just reading the other day, kind of on YouTube or somewhere, like kind of like one should always start these various lectures or presentations or speeches kind of with an interesting fact or an interesting question or a story. And in this particular case, let's choose a fact of that you can actually, for the price of an average school in Germany, you can build roughly, I kind of invented it half, you can actually build 100 schools that cater to the same amount of kids in a country like Ghana. Also, if you compare to the amount of work of professional architects and we are kind of present in these projects have to put in. So from architects to engineers to everybody that's working on it, I guess the number wouldn't be far off from this 100, where the amount of work you put in is 100 times more here than on projects that we do in Ghana, for example. So just the amount of impact that one does by investing their time is really multiply higher, and one can achieve kind of similar things by way less resources and less time. So this is one of the kind of reasons why we're actually able to do this, because we are also in charge of fundraising and all the similar things. So the funding is not so high. We live in an environment in a country where actually we can afford to work half-time, part-time, and then donate part of our time to actually do these projects. One of these kind of funny sketches, funny comics I'd like to show that kind of shows a little bit how we do these things is this sketch of a tree and a swing project that has been going around for a while, where one can see that this kind of conflict between various sides that are present in the project. And from architects to engineers to what's sustainable, what the client wanted. It's always a very conflictive situation, and there's a lot of time wasted in people discussing and not agreeing with various things. And in our case, what we can afford due to circumstances is that we kind of tend to combine all these roles, and we are in charge of the design. We communicate directly with the local organization. We have to kind of try to find the funding. So then eventually we are responsible also for this funding we raised, and we need to utilize it very carefully and with high responsibility. And what happens is that suddenly we are both in a way the investor, we're the client, we are the architects, we want to be sustainable. And through these kind of various roles that we get, one behaves a bit differently, because it's not easy to say, what is actually sustainable, because you have to also say, kind of talk a little bit about the costs, and is it actually possible to do it, and we are the ones who kind of grade ourselves. So we say we want to build this out of earth, we want to make it really, really sustainable, but then the question is, who builds it? Is the budget there? Is it too complicated? So we are kind of the ones that decide on all of these things. And it's a big responsibility, but what it's good is actually it speeds up the process. The decisions are made by a small team, and then we can have enough time to actually finish the projects and actually follow through them. When we first started doing this, it was really important for us as architects that we kind of decide what are we actually striving for in terms of fulfilling these kind of projects. This is an example of a typical school in Ghana, and a more like a more higher example of this school in Burkina Faso by my famous architect François Quéré. And it fulfills the same function, but the lower one costs way more, and the simple one is a very simple building built by local builders, and one can now argue, is it worth the money to build these kind of structures that are a bit nicer, that give us the different environment for the kids to study in, or is it just enough to be utilitarian and just have a roof above one head, and it's still a classroom, it still fulfills its role? Same goes for these various interiors. The lower photo I personally did when we were in Ghana. It's a very modest classroom, no windows, no partition walls, but still kids are sitting inside, they're learning, there's teachers, things is happening. There's no the basic function is fulfilled, although there's a nicer school and a nicer interior, the top corner, an example from Rwanda, which is a much nicer environment for the kids to study in. But again, for us that have to deal with the numerous things, now the question is, where do we position ourselves with a particular project? Do we have the funding or not? And how do we continue with it? So this was a question we asked ourselves at the beginning, and we still do with every project we do. I will show you like 2 projects that we finished so far. So everything I'm talking about is based on the actual 2 projects we finished. We just finished one recently, a few weeks ago. And as far as these topics of this presentation is both, I will talk a little bit about the sustainability and how we approach that, and the empowerment of locals, be it the local organization or the local builders. So first thing is pretty straightforward. The local NGOs, they need these buildings, and like a school. So if obviously some level of empowerment is given to the local community because they're finally able to realize their goal. And that's kind of the most obvious thing. It's just like doing a good deed. We've managed to support them, fundraise it, build it, and the community can kind of continue to use it, and it's obviously a plus. Now, to that, there are different kind of steps where one can also try to be a little bit more sustainable and more useful to some broader environment. The first project, I'm just going to go quickly through the thing just to get an impression where it actually is. It's close to Accra, the capital of Ghana. These are the photos from the trip we did in 2015 when we first were getting to know the project. This is the village where the school is to be built, and this is kind of the examples of the local construction in the vicinity and throughout Ghana, or throughout many countries where basically the local masons, local builders build building in the most simple way that they can manage. So it's kind of typical using of concrete and cement blocks, and this is the 99% of everything in Ghana is basically done like that. So we thought, okay, can we do a little bit better than that? What can we do to be more sustainable and to kind of achieve some extra qualities that buildings like this don't actually offer? On the other side of the spectrum is the kind of earth construction of these local huts that basically are done by the poorest people just to kind of solve their, to have a roof over their heads. There's a big tradition of earth construction, but nowadays it's used mostly by, it's considered like poor man's material, building out of earth, although there are numerous examples throughout Ghana where the earth construction was actually a thing. This is an example of a mosque from the north of the country, where there is a big tradition of that kind of the earth construction. And in the 60s there were lots of German or many foreign architects that actually traveled to Ghana and learned about all these building techniques, which now they're very popular here, but out there it doesn't exist. Outside of these few examples, it's basically not there anymore. We traveled around, we saw these other examples of these houses on stilts in the seaside. We kind of get to know these other materials. I don't know, here they use this palm tree that kind of grows in the vicinity for these partition walls. It's called raffia. So we're kind of just gathering bits and pieces as we were traveling and kind of thinking of how are we going to actually build anything. We had no design at that moment. We just kind of went to see, okay, how does one build in Ghana? And then this is the photo of an orphanage in Ghana of this partner organization that we worked with, where they actually already had it. And what we noticed here was funny because they had all these windows where the windows are very new and proper, but they are sliding windows and then they open only halfway. So, and this half that opens is basically a mosquito net. So there are windows, a lot of money is invested, but then there is no proper ventilation within the rooms, and that's why they need these ceiling fans. And it happened then because there was shortages of electricity, like up to 3-4 years ago, where actually it might happen that there is no electricity at night. They turn off the fans and it's too hot, and kids slept outside. So kind of the whole purpose of building an actual roof over your head and walls was defeated by not being able to stay inside. Then on our travels, we ran into Samuel, which was kind of a very important part of this whole journey, and this whole desire to try something new, try some sustainable architecture was now suddenly possible because he was doing these compressed earth blocks, stabilized compressed earth blocks. So it's basically earth with a little bit of cement put into these hydraulic machines where and then that can be used even as a load-bearing element. These blocks are they've been around for a while. From the 50s or 60s in South America, they were using them a lot. They're still used, but in Ghana, not so much, because this whole opinion of earth being a non-material is still present. So we met Sam, and he seemed like so very passionate about it. This is a little bit how actually these things work and how are they connected. And he was really kind of into it. He bought these machines, he fixed them, he knew what he was doing, and he was kind of saying that he did many projects and things, but it was still very hard to find what he actually did. There were small projects. I know this anecdote thing where actually he mentioned that his brother is building a house across the road, and then we asked naturally, okay, but are you using your blocks? And he said, no, not really. So I guess even within the family, they were looking at a bit like, now we don't want to use this. But for us, it was in us. We said, okay, there is somebody who knows how to deal with this material. We got the information, and we could just come back to Berlin and continue to kind of work on the design. We went back, we went through the whole process of designing a project and doing the fundraising, doing all the detailed construction plans. And it took 2.5 years to actually fundraise. and 2018 we managed to do it. So it was a pretty long journey, and the school was finished September 2018. And this, I hope this video will run. It's like a small time lapse of actually how the whole thing went. It was like around 6 months. Was very a new experience for us, but we managed to implement all these things that we saw along the way. So we, again, as I explained at the beginning, we played it a little bit midway. We didn't go completely sustainable just earth construction, but we tried to do as much as we could under the circumstances. So this is the photo of the finished school, and as you can see, Sam's blocks are used. So we use the blocks that we found. We still use the blocks. The cost is actually, they cost the same or more as building with the normal materials that are actually present on site. So much, it's like I'm not like he was doing it pretty cheap at the time when we were doing it, but for example, now when we're doing the second project, he got so kind of, I don't know, business is doing good, so he actually was too expensive for us. So we had to find somebody else who did the same earth blocks. So we are glad that if it was us helping, which we don't know for sure. I mean, he's an entrepreneur. He had his projects, but if we had helped, I find it great. Even if he's too expensive for us to work with, he actually pulled it off. He puts photos on Facebook. He has many clients doing some family houses. So this is one of these things that I wanted to talk about, of how we really fulfill the goal of finding somebody who kind of knows how to deal with these materials, and then had some faith in him, although the boss of the local NGO didn't, for example. He did some projects with him, and he was very skeptical, but we kind of pushed it and we said, come on, it's gonna be fine, it's gonna be fine. And hopefully, luckily, it was fine. And actually, the whole NGO found it, everybody found it really, really nice in the end. But it took a lot of faith from our side to actually push it. Although it's nothing special, but in this kind of environment where these materials looked at as something that you don't use, I guess some little movement was done to kind of to help along for people to use a more sustainable material, to help a local guy establish his business a bit better. So we were happy. We're pretty happy with that outcome. The whole thing kind of it took like 6-7 months to do the whole thing. We did this like a WhatsApp control thing. We had like 1 or 2 volunteers constantly on site, and we're constantly on WhatsApp, checking every detail, writing emails. We had really nice contractors to work with by pure luck as well. So everything turned out really, really nice, and we're really happy how the whole thing worked out. This is before the opening with some kids inside the school, the first days of class, and the finished classroom a little bit. Then, as things went, we got contacted by another NGO that was kind of in the vicinity, and there, okay, I'm just checking the time. I think I should speed it up a little bit. And then they had another project to go. We went to that project analyzing the first project to kind of continue being both sustainable and efficient, and kind of price-wise, to kind of learn on our mistakes from the first thing. So we thought, okay, wood is really amazing in Ghana. We're gonna keep on using that. The blocks, definitely, there was like something everybody liked. We as well. The windows turned out to be great. We said, okay, let's do something like that in the next project. Something I didn't talk about much, here is visible, is like each of these classrooms has a roof opening for ventilation, where the hot air goes out. That also was looked at a bit skeptical by all the workers and contractors, because it was all, of course, more expensive to do it like that. But once it was done, walking into those classrooms, what we really noticed that the whole mechanism of hot air goes up and out, and the classrooms feel nicer on the to be in, actually work. So again, we proved the point in real life, and it was also considered something that everybody then realized, okay, that makes sense. Some other things we thought, okay, let's kick them out. Let's try to do it without concrete, if it works. This raffia palm tree that we had was pretty cool looking. We really liked it, but it was so tedious to build because the raffia dried out. They had to nail each piece inside one by one, and it was too expensive and too long. And we thought, okay, next time let's do something simpler. So we kind of we learned on our own example and said, okay, let's do this other project a bit differently and see if we can be cheaper. That was kind of the main goal. If we can be cheaper and faster, while still maintaining some logic and moderation between fully sustainable and kind of earth materials and stuff like that, and being classy, because I don't know, for example, a roof is always a metal roof. It's really hard to build anything else in Ghana. So some things you have to compromise. So this was, again, the project we've done. Again, we had another kind of an opening in the roof, again, to allow for the air to go out. These were the renderings before the construction. And this was like a small animation of showing how we're actually going to build it. So the new thing here was, let's do it out of wood. Let's do like this quick construction, modular, prefabricated wood construction. And this is actually how it looked on site in a little time lapse. So it's almost the same. So it's really kind of, it worked very well, and it was fast. The thing is, again, same as with these blocks, it's not necessarily cheaper, it is faster. And we are kind of also, it's a bit work in progress where we test things out. So, okay, now we know, look, we can do it. If next project comes along, we can do it out of wood, but that means this and that. So we need to buy the wood in advance. We probably need to check, kind of where is this wood coming from? Is it really sustainable, or are we doing more damage by using wood? But we tested the system, and now we know, okay, we know how to do it, and it actually worked really well. But again, it's site dependent, and we have to kind of always think what's the best choice for another project. This left and right is kind of before and after, not the total after, but like this is kind of how it looked. We managed to make it look almost same as in the renderings, which was funny for us, that it was kind of so precise and everything. We're really happy with the contractors and the way they did their job, especially in these Corona times. We couldn't even have volunteers on site. It was basically pure WhatsApp writing messages with the actual guys building it. But since we collaborated on the first project, it was much, much easier, and it went really well in this kind of, again, the construction was supposed to last shorter this time around, but due to Corona and all these complications, it ended up lasting the same or a bit longer. But I think this, making it out of wood, could actually speed it up by at least a month compared to some normal way of constructing. These are the photos when it's now like a few weeks ago. And just to finish it off, a project in Mozambique that we're actually working on now. Again, we did a trip, saw materials, what do people build with, lots of straw, thatched roofs, locals making bricks. There are some clay deposits in the vicinity. So we kind of were building our kind of a little portfolio of what could we use. We found this Irish guy who did this whole kind of mini hotel out of earth bags filled with sand, like a super adobe construction. So we have kind of our new Sam, somebody who is passionate about building it differently. And there's lots of resort architecture, so there's lots of this kind of knowledge about how to build with wood and thatched roofs and stuff like that. So again, we came back, we did the design, and hopefully end of this year, now it's kind of the Corona situation in Mozambique is getting a bit better. They're starting to prepare some initial construction, and we're hoping that it's gonna get going by the end of this year, next year. and this is kind of at the end, this kind of whole connection. These are the guys who build it in the end. Is always the local workers employed through the contractors, but it's kind of also a nice communication going with. This is our volunteer Masa, who was there like 3 months for the construction of the first school and kind of got accepted as one of the guys. So this is it. So thanks a lot. I know it took a bit longer, but it's also a bit weird talking to kind of the screen. So yeah, so thanks a lot. If anybody has questions or anything, I guess if you wanna talk or kind of show up as a video, you push something and then I push something, and then hopefully we can do that. Okay, so let's finish with the thing. And yeah, so moderation panel. Now what should I do? Plus, maybe. So any questions, anything? No problem, great. Glad to be able to talk a little bit about what we do. And Ishmael, nice to see you here. So that the Mozambique project might continue. So I guess if nobody wants to talk about things, I'm here. Are there a lot of in what way do you mean? Like for Europe, in which way? As like as a sustainable construction in like in Germany? I mean, there is a lot. There's a lot of things happening, but it's more like it's fashionable. It's good that it's like that. There's a lot of sustainable architecture with earth, with hemp, with straw, but it's pretty expensive. It's always more expensive building like that than building the classical way. Luckily, there is enough finances, enough funding in Europe to actually allow for those projects. But I know that if it's a public project like schools or kindergartens, it's really hard to deal with the from some lectures I've attended and people were explaining it. Even if you want to make it out of wood as a more sustainable material, there are lots of regulations to fight with and to kind of prove, be it for the fire regulations or anything, or the stability of a building. So it's actually hard work. One really needs to be really passionate about it. My colleague that actually designed this together with us, kind of the projects in Ghana, both of them, he built a house out of straw for himself, for example. And it's always like a gray, basically straw as an insulation element. So you kind of build it out of wood and fill it out of straw. It's always a fight with you kind of have to invent that you're building your house out of something, and then you build it kind of out of straw on your own. And in a way, in Ghana was similar. We also never said that we just use the materials as if we're using kind of normal bricks. So I guess not telling anybody you're gonna build it out of use earth walls, because it will just create complications. So it's a bit similar everywhere. The thing is that here you can find really nice examples of sustainable architecture, but once one tries to copy it to these projects where we're working, it just doesn't work. It's too high tech and it's too expensive. So this whole sustainable architecture really needs to be low tech, done by locals, and you need to have somebody on site who actually knows what to do if we are not able to be there ourselves. So it is a thing that it's a struggle to do it like that. You can actually go travel there, get all the knowledge yourself, and then you build it sustainable, which is also not the point. The point is to kind of empower the locals who have some knowledge in it, and then kind of work with them and allow them to kind of do it. It's never gonna be so nice as some magazine examples of what you can see here, but that's not the point as well. Kind of, it's more like to popularize the different construction things. Like, for example, we'd always like to try to build something out of bamboo, but it will come opportunity where we'll be in some region where it's growing there. Somebody actually has some knowledge with it, because it's a bit dangerous when you try to force it in some part of the country where it actually doesn't exist, and then people don't know how to work with it. Then simply you just maybe they don't treat it well, and everything looks nice once it's built, but then in 2 years it just falls apart, and it's a problem. So one needs to be really careful how far to push this sustainable construction, because it does need to stay there for I don't know, 10, 20, 30 years, or hopefully more. So yeah. Anything else, anybody? So if not, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in and checking it out. Thanks for the questions, and enjoy the rest of the festival. Bye-bye.